I think I would tell my younger self, it's okay if you make a mistake, own it, but learn from it. Don't let it be a confidence breaker.
Hey there, welcome to the AI Sidekick, the show designed to help you banish your AI anxiety. I'm your host, Ryan Heath, from Robin AI. Today on the AI Sidekick, I'm joined by Taa Grays, who is a powerhouse at the intersection of tech, law, and information governance. You've had an amazing career, 2 decades in financial institutions, doing regulation, innovation, compliance. You are now the board secretary and the president-elect designee of the New York State Bar Association.
Yes.
You've been involved in diversity efforts across the company. You've been involved in talent development. So your career is really done it all, basically. And we're so excited to have you here. And the Bar Association has done a report on AI and responsible use of AI, not just for big law, but for solo practitioners, for small law firms, for the lawyers who didn't grow up with the technology that they're now expected to lead through.
Yes.
We're just so excited to have you here. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Ryan. I'm really excited to be here too. It's such a interesting times that I live in, to say the least. There are lots of things that are exciting, but then there's some things creating volatility in this space. But, either way, as lawyers, we're here to provide that guidance to our business partners and our colleagues to be able to steer through bumpy times.
And that's why we've got to keep talking.
Yeah.
So big value on dialogue here. So if we think about your career from the Bronx District Attorney's Office through to MetLife, now the Bar Association, what are the experiences that you had early on that really stuck with you, that informed how you approach leadership and innovation in law?
I would go back probably right before being in the DA's office with my parents. Commitment to the community and advocacy. The reason I went to law school was to help people. Being in the DA's office, one of those early lessons that I learned was that your reputation is really important, and your reputation precedes you. You therefore want to make sure you do right by people, because if you don't, and it was a small community, in order for people to believe in you and want to follow you and help you do the work that you have been charged with doing, people have to trust you. So knowing that the most important conversations happen when you're not in the room, you have to be very, very conscientious about how people perceive you and what your reputation is. All right. The next thing is, don't sweat the small stuff. I'm very organized, very detail oriented, and you have to make sure that you understand what are the important things to really focus your time on, right? So if something is small, and you don't want that to be the tail wagging the dog, right? And then the third lesson, which is connected to that, is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
So I'm going to make a segue now to AI regulation, because we were in a system that was building some guardrails. And now if you look across what the Trump administration is doing, they're taking a different approach. It's much more freewheeling.
Yes.
How do you see sort of corporations and members of the Bar Association navigating that change of approach?
So corporations do recognize that policies do change, right? So you have to be able to adapt to those things. In this space, though, that is ever evolving, and it's so nascent, right? We're still trying to figure out, well, how do you do this? And how does this work? And what's kind of the next thing that's going to happen? And they're just things we don't know, right, about how this tool is going to evolve, right?
You have to be ready for all of it. Is that about developing robust best practices and being ready to sort of tweak and pivot a little bit according to what comes out of Washington?
Yes. And an added wrinkle, if you work for a global company, because outside the United States, as you probably are aware,
not even worked at the EU, the big bad EU, and its huge AI Act. So I know all about that system.
And that's a different approach. And one of the things that I don't think many Americans appreciate about the differing approaches, and I learned this just doing work, again, this intersection of technology and the law. looking at privacy regulations, right? The EU was ahead of the curve and leading with the GDPR, right? And that regulation comes from there were other regulations that were in place, right, culminating into this more robust piece of regulation, but it comes from World War II, right? And these human rights abuses. And once I understood that, then I'm like, now I get, right, why you want to put in all these protections and why it's considered basically a human right, because it was abused to horrendous effect.
And like you nearly always lose an argument when you bring the Nazis in. But in this case, it's like, okay, on one hand in Germany, the Nazis were literally ripping through everyone's identities and even right to live. And then when the East German communists were involved, the Stasi, like the spying system that existed there, like that creates a lot of PTSD for Germans about what a government might do with their data or a tech company might do with their data.
Exactly. And the rest of your European fellow states agree and have some, maybe not to the same degree, but a collective understanding of that because they lived through that. We don't have that in the US. And early on, people were more willing, oh, you want my information so I can get like a free something or I get this product? But we just didn't have the same type of unifying experience that would make us more appreciative as well as just more cautious. You have cyber incidents where people's data is being dumped in places or being taken out of organizations, and then people are experiencing problems with their credit being ruined and money being taken. But that's, even though people know that as a part of like our collective knowledge, it's still very individual, right? It's not the same thing as having a dictatorship imposing this across several countries.
Everyone in New York State had their phone numbers as identity stolen at once. Then there'd be some backlash. You know exactly what people felt about.
Exactly. So with that being said, you have the Europeans that are taking a different approach to managing not only privacy, but also with AI as well. The certain Asian countries are looking at it from a different approach as well. I mean, China being the type of authoritative or state that it is, they have a different approach that's kind of centered around the state. Latin America tends to have strong trading relationships with the European Union, and so they tend to align a little more closely with the regulations in the EU. But with that being said, if you have a global company, you have to navigate and manage all of that. What I have found in my experience and in speaking to other colleagues that are in companies that are large companies, you have to at least create something that across the board works. And that's usually like some middle ground. And as you get new information, you have a team of people, usually a cross-functional team of people, not just lawyers, can't just be lawyers, right? You have to have the business people, you have to have folks from technology, probably folks from HR. So it takes a village. It's not just,
I love that. It takes a village. That says it very nicely. Now, if we think a little bit about the, narrow in on the legal AI aspect now. What do you think are the most promising areas for AI when it comes to doing your job on a daily basis as a lawyer?
First is around the mundane things, routine things, tedious things, but it allows you to really tap into insights in your data, right? This tool can go and crawl across it with whatever prompts you are designing, right? In order to extract those insights. And then you can put that together. And then that's what you bring to your board. Right? And it's not just your board, it's how you manage your teams. A pain point for a lot of organizations is, how do I articulate what my team is working on? Let's say we need a new resource. Right. Usually it's a manual thing. You got to sit down and document, what are you doing? And what are you doing? And what are you doing? And then you take all that information and then you convert it into a narrative to make a business case. If you have a tool like this, you can look at the data you have about who did what are the types of matters that are coming through, right? And some of that, it's not routine, but it's just tedious to do all that, right?
And if you can prove, okay, we did 300 supply during the first year, now we use 900.
Exactly.
This was a good use of the tool, or this was a good hire that we got this extra person in. So.
And if you can think about, what are those agreements, right? That can help you fine tune what type of resource you need, right? If it's some sort of set of agreements that are dealing with certain types of products, right? Oh, then that means we need to have a lawyer that focuses on these types of products, right? Because this poor person is being overwhelmed because they're like 2 people, right? And we actually need to increase it to 4, right? So it can actually help you better identify the type of resources that you need in order to be able to do the work.
Now, thinking about what you want to achieve through the Bar Association.
I could talk specifically about the New York State Bar Association. Bar associations historically and traditionally have been places where lawyers come to educate themselves, not only by having CLE panels, networking, but benefits that are offered by the Bar Association. So we have a role in being able to help our attorneys gain literacy and introduction to tools and to network with each other, like with the boot camp today, right? You're sitting next to people who are probably in similar industries, have similar curiosity, and you can have those conversations. Well, how did you use it? What do you see as a possible use in the work that you're doing? What did you like about this, right? And it's those conversations that then help you start thinking about, oh, well, maybe I can use it this way. Or if you've done it that way, can I give you a call? So that we can compare notes and you can help me work through what needs to be done, right? And that happens in bar associations.
Now, one of the other big challenges in the justice system more broadly is access to legal services, access to justice. Do you see a role there for the Bar Association in pushing AI providers to make sure more people can get the support that they need? We have a free version of our product. It's a drop in the ocean, but there are so many people that cannot afford the legal support that they need.
So the quick answer is yes. And the longer answer is you have to have some guardrails in place, right? You have to partner with the right organizations to create tools that not only make it easy for people to understand what it is, two, it shouldn't take the place of a lawyer, right? But it gives them something so that when they kind of understand what they need to do, it can walk them through, oh, if you're going to go and talk to a lawyer about this, you should get this information. You should be able to answer these questions. This should be your problem, right? That you're going and you're talking to someone to. And to some limited degree, if something, going back to why you use tools and how it's helpful, if it's something that's routine or repetitive, where the risk is very low, right? The answer is binary. It's yes or no. In those instances, and they're probably limited, but still can be very important to someone who has no money and really just has a very simple issue and they don't need to wait or pay money, right, to go and see a lawyer or maybe, maybe go see a paralegal. But I would say in certain situations, if it's documents that need to be completed, right? So sometimes these documents are hard to understand, particularly if English is a second language for you, then you can use these tools to help you understand what it is that's being asked and complete whatever the documents to get whatever service you need, right? So sometimes those things are done by maybe lawyers, maybe they're done by paralegals, but there are places where people just need to have something very discreet done that then helps them get benefits or helps them to do some next piece of whatever the process is, right? So it gives them the opportunity to be able to do that, bring something to a lawyer in very limited instances, maybe not go to a lawyer, maybe go to a paralegal, right? Is this okay, right? Has everything been completed? Do I need to do something else? Which can be less money and then less time, right, for the paralegal.
But if AI is making it easier to be a lawyer, then that frees up some more time to help people who don't have money, who have gray zone cases. Maybe we need to expand pro bono work in light of the fact that AI is going to speed up day-to-day legal work, at least in corporate law.
And that's a good point. A lot of corporations do pro bono work for organizations that they don't have their own in-house staff, or you have people who need services, right? And it's organized through some sort of not-for-profit that doesn't have a legal component to, or just one legal person. The AI tool can help accelerate that process, right? Because you can have the person using the tool, kind of putting everything together that you need. And then once the person comes to you, you have everything laid out. It makes it a lot easier to be able to move through the case and maybe handle more cases.
So maybe if we reflect a little bit now on everything you've learned in your career, what's one thing you wish you knew at the beginning of your career? Something you know now that you would tell your younger self, or you would tell someone starting out in the profession to think harder about, or to worry less about?
I think a lot of lawyers go in being fearful of making mistakes. And depending on where you go to school or what your upbringing is, you don't make mistakes, right? Because it shows weakness. It may show incompetence. So you have to have a certain amount of confidence in yourself to know, okay, I didn't do that right. I get that. Now I need to learn from it, right? Making a mistake isn't fatal. It's a part of growing and learning. You don't want to repeat the mistake, right? But I think I would tell my younger self, it's okay if you make a mistake, own it, but learn from it. Don't let it be a confidence breaker. Let it be something that helps you to learn more so that you can continue developing confidence in the work that you do.
Excellent. Taa Grays, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for tuning into the AI Sidekick. I hope you're now feeling more confident about implementing AI into your business. If you found today's conversation valuable, be sure to subscribe and share it with your colleagues. For more insights, or to see how Robin AI can help you make contracts simple, check out robinai.com. See you next time.